Right, I'm with John Christensen, who's a visitor to Jersey, but knows the island quite well. What's your origins here, John?
Well, I grew up in Jersey, in the parish of St. Peter. I went to school in Jersey, and I'm a Jerseyman. Even now, as a visitor, I travel on a Jersey passport, and think of myself as having very strong roots in Jersey. Of course, I went away to work elsewhere and study elsewhere, study economics. But before I left Jersey in my late teens, at the time when Jersey was emerging as a tax haven, I began to get the faintest inkling this was something important, very important indeed. And I've made tax havens basically the study of my career. And my entire career since 1976 has been pretty much about looking at where tax havens like Jersey fit into the global economy. And it was as part of that I came back to Jersey in 1986 to essentially become an insider, to get a job inside the banking world, or the accounting world, and I later became economic advisor to the government in Jersey, so I was right at the heart of the beast as I see it. But left in 1998. I left to go elsewhere and carry on a campaign to start building a global campaign around tax havens. I was a contributor to Oxfam's report in 2000, a report called Tax Havens, Releasing the Hidden Billions for Development. And that report, which went round the world, led to the creation of the Tax Justice Network, which I'm now the director of its international affairs.
Right. That report is much quoted if you look in the right places to see where it's people who are aware of these problems. What impact did it have outside of the cognoscenti, those the elite who understand what the problem is?
It put the issue of tax havens into a different frame. It was the first time where tax havens were not looked at as minor distractions, pirates' dens where sad tax evaders and dodgy characters hang out. It said, look, tax havens are now a very deep-rooted and fundamental part of a global system that's emerged. And it's the first attempt, and Oxfam, I have to say, held back their punches. They didn't really go as far as I would have liked to say, look, tax havens are actually very largely responsible for the huge increase in global inequality over recent decades, and indeed for deepening absolute poverty. And from my point of view, I think this is where the debates move forward in the last few years. The argument now that tax havens are actually the supply side of global corruption. They're corrupting markets, they're corrupting societies, they're corrupting democracy, they're corrupting the rule of law. So the Oxfam report was the first stepping stone toward the building of a much, much wider global awareness.
This week there's elections going on, several weeks. The big election, Jersey's big election, is next week. I don't know if you've heard of what's been said, but Jerseymen standing for election are prone to say, oh, I'm proud to be a Jerseyman. From knowing what you know about what goes on in Jersey, would you say the word proud for you is appropriate?
I can well understand why people living in a small community have this sense of kind of deep pride and a sense also of tribal belonging and so on. But no, I'm afraid I'm not proud to be a Jerseyman. I'm afraid I was very proud. I grew up a very proud Jerseyman. But then when I started looking at the role that Jersey's financial services sector has played in the global world, in the broader development of globalization, I'm afraid I'm very concerned that Jersey has become largely captive to rather sinister banking interests who played a very, very large part in bringing other countries to their ruin, including the United Kingdom. That doesn't mean I don't appreciate the beaches and so on, but I think that I'm aware, for example, that I've been described as a traitor to the island and so on. What I think the real traitors are the people who have sold this island out, very shabbily sold this island out over decades to external interests, and who continue to sell this island out down the river. I think it's time that I would like to see people who describe themselves as proud Jerseymen perhaps stand back a little and think about what role is this island playing in the globalised world, in undermining democracy elsewhere, in undermining the laws of other countries, in attacking the well-being of very poor people across the world. This is not something that an ordinary person can feel proud of. But what shocks me when I come back to Jersey, and has shocked me on this particular visit, is the sense that young people in Jersey frankly don't give a damn. They just don't give a fig. I was talking yesterday with some young people, and they were saying, well, you know, Jersey's role is absolutely shocking in this. And I said, well, where are you from? We're from Poland. We're from elsewhere in Europe, and we meet and we talk with young Jersey people, and it's quite clear that there is a massive gap. They don't give a damn about what they're doing, and that's not the kind of society that I feel comfortable with.
It is a bit odd, especially at Hustings times, because people are saying things which will please the public, but it pleases the public in Jersey to say we're going to keep the Jersey's green fields, which I always think is a bit ironic when you think what might be happening in other countries as a result of the financial manipulation that goes on through Jersey. Where around the world, where if you were to send somebody, we'll go and have a look at the world tour, where would you send them to see the sort of damage that's being done?
Well, I think the really bad examples are some of the African oil countries that I've paid attention to, where the pilfering, the manipulation, the incredible efforts around tax avoidance by multinational companies have simply devastated countries that were mineral rich, which had really quite buoyant democracies and so on. And the whole thing has been so corrupting, and Jersey is at the centre of this. You know, one finds Jersey companies which are providing management services, which are simply booking exercises to shift profits out of these countries. There's a whole track record of kleptocrats, of African kleptocrats using Jersey. The effect has been absolutely appalling, even involving civil wars. And somehow there's a blindness to this, you know, worse than a blindness, a willful blindness, a complete indifference. And I think that reflects very, very badly on Jersey society. Well,
Jersey famously has welcomed as a rich immigrant a guy who was allegedly a mercenary, and he's now a respectable oil trader, and that seems to be acceptable in Jersey society, a bit like a character from Bergerac, but there he is, a real person in Jersey. Does that bother you, that sort of thing?
Well, of course it bothers me. I mean, I think Jersey's that peculiar. I think it's rather British. It's deeply embedded in British society. All sorts of crooks, gangsters and so on make a lot of money and are welcomed, and it's part of this broader... Someone once described the British attitude as being the kind of butlers to the rest of the world, and you know, we're very happy for our lawyers. Our lawyers are very happy in Jersey to take extraordinary fee money from people who they know are crooks. And I've worked inside the industry, so I know exactly which lawyers are, you know, are prepared to stick their noses up the smelly parts and take the fees and turn a blind eye to this. But I don't think that Jersey's peculiar in this respect. There's something rather British about this. It goes back to our imperial past, which itself smells very bad.
Well, rather imperial past. There was an attempt by an organisation with funding which apparently had Guernsey origins to overthrow an entire African government and take the oil. That was people did finish up in jail, and members are still in jail. People part of that group. I don't know what's happened to them now. We don't hear. The principals have been dealt with. Some have been released, but the rest are...
Quelle surprise, but of course, you know, you talk to the Jersey authorities and indeed the Guernsey authorities, and first of all they said we were transparent, and we're honest, and we're cooperative, and blah blah blah, and it's nothing to do with us. But the truth of the matter, when you look deep, is that Jersey's legal arrangements, regulatory arrangements, are deeply secretive, deeply lacking in accountability. The regulators have been asleep on the job for decades. Levels of incompetence. The levels of incompetence here were, you know, just astonishing. I know of which I speak because I worked inside the government for 11 years. I know the people, and these are people who will willfully turn a blind eye to what's going on because the money smells.